Hey everyone, this is Philip, and welcome to the PHILLIP Show. I am glad that you are here. So we're going to grab our coffee before we get started. Wait, check out this mug though. Some of you have seen it because you've been here before, and for the first time, if you've been here for the first time, this is from Miami Valley Pottery, and look at that. I always feel like a Viking when it's a whole situation. But anyway, so this is June, and we are in Pride Month. And the PHILLIP Show has proudly partnered with YS Pride to be the media sponsor this year. And we're going to be bringing some interviews of people in and throughout the LGBTQ community to add awareness, to shed light, give education, provide more advocacy, and to share journeys and clear up misconceptions, tackle some myths, and just see the life of people that are living the life that a lot of people kind of make up the narration for, the narrative for. So we're jumping into those, and today we are in a series called Inspiring Stories That Transform, and this is from the trans community within LGBTQ, and I am super excited today for you to meet this amazing guest. So join me in welcoming Iden.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm worried that you're maybe overselling me. I don't know how amazing I actually am. We'll see.
Well, we'll just set the bar high and keep it there. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah. So this month, of course, is Pride Month. What does Pride Month mean to you?
Well, it's funny. I was actually awake a decent amount in the middle of the night last night, maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was thinking about that. I was literally thinking about, what does pride mean to me? What is it about? And I think it was turning in my head because you see some memes online and say, don't forget, before it was a celebration, it was a riot. It was a protest. And I thought about that. I say, well, it was. And I was like, what really were they rioting against? And we'll see if this is as profound as it seemed to me this morning. But I was thinking that what pride is about is rioting against and protesting fear. Being afraid, not just a minority group being afraid to be themselves, being afraid of being shamed or hurt or ostracized, but rioting and protesting against the majority community being afraid of us. Right? I think that is the great work that has been done here, is to fight against people being afraid of the queer community, to stop vilifying them, to stop painting them as a danger, as a threat.
What would you say that people are afraid of?
Well, I think that humans, are naturally afraid of what they don't understand. Gotcha. And I think their tendency is to try to make everything into something that they do understand, right? To try to force conformity, to assuage that anxiety, right? And all of these movements, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, feminism, all of it is fighting that fear. You can't have a society that is driven by fear, and a homogenization is a fear reaction. And I think all of these movements have been a protest at their core against fear.
Understandably so. I understand that very well. So let's talk and give some people some education. I think the more people have relationship with people and friendships, and it can be working relationships, the more people have a relationship with people, I think fear can be dissipated in a lot of circumstances, because now they have more knowledge and they understand. Right. So let's understand you really quickly. So give us tell us,
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. Just 1 or 2 words, sum yourself up.
Okay.
So tell us, you have a very unique story. So tell us about you and your journey.
Well, I am a 42-year-old biracial pansexual trans woman. Um, and I didn't know all of that until I was 41 years old, right?
So
So
for a
for
year.
41 years of my 42 years here, I was living as just a very depressed and sad man.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't know why. Um, and through a series of, not a series, a long, long round of concerted and focused effort and self-discovery, I came to know myself as as being trans, and then I have spent the last year of my life transitioning, trying to make make my presentation, what people see and hear of me, what I see and hear of me, right? To match that. Um,
Okay.
and it's, I mean, that kind of journey is a big, that's a big, um, it's a big thing and it's a big story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I don't know if there's a part of it specifically that you're interested in.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's talk about you. You said up until you were 41, and then you decided to transition at 41, and now you're 42.
Yes.
Up until those times, how were you navigating life then? And how did you abruptly say, after all that time, okay, I'm going to live authentically?
Well, it's funny, the story you hear, the narrative that you hear from a lot of trans people, and it's one that I thought was it was standard issue for trans people, is that, oh, I knew that I wasn't a boy. I knew that I wasn't a girl when I was 3 or when I was 4. I just knew. Um, and that wasn't the case for me.
Hmm.
And so I kind of, because that wasn't the case for me, kind of assumed that that wasn't me. But what I did know early on, maybe like second or third grade, was really when I started feeling that I was different. And as I got older, as puberty and things changed, I just became more and more uncomfortable with myself. I developed through college and everything coping mechanisms, and what I did was just kind of create um, a very realistic simulation of a self that I could present to people. Um, but it felt disingenuous to me. I didn't know why it felt disingenuous, but it was exhausting to
So you
maintain
didn't. So you didn't know why you created this character or who
but
the
I
character.
knew that it was a character. I knew that it wasn't the real me that people were seeing, and it took so much effort to maintain that. Um,
Mhm.
and as I got older, I just started to withdraw because the effort was becoming too much, and
Mm.
it was easier to just be alone. Um, and it got really bad for a few years. That was
Mm.
very sick at eating disorders and self-injury and just every kind of maladaptive coping mechanism you can think of. Um, and until it got to a point where I said, I can't live like this. I can't live like this anymore. I have to try to get better. And so I did, but I was working on those problems. I wasn't working on the source because
Mm.
I didn't know. I just didn't
Yeah.
know. I knew I loved women, and I knew I was jealous of them, and I knew I wished I could wear their clothes. All these things that in hindsight are very obvious, but it wasn't until one day when I fully dressed as a woman, and I am still to this day not sure why why I did that. But when I saw myself, then I knew. Then I knew right away, and I started transition that day. That day.
That day. So it was just kind of like night and day. Like I
That,
experienced this, and now I'm going to live my life as the person that I am, not the
yes.
person that you've been seeing.
Right. And I had that conversation with myself, right? It all of a sudden everything made sense. I saw myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, that's what's been wrong. That's what you've been missing. And I just started sobbing and laughing and realizing that all of the things that I'd been carrying with me, all of the sadness and all of that, it was just like, now I know. Now I can fix it. Um, And it was just, oh God, such a relief.
Wow. So let me ask this, because normally people will have stories that I've heard will have like a progression. It doesn't seem like you had a progression. So young, I know that I'm different. Then it's like, okay, I might be gay, but I don't know, or I'm gay, and then it's like, okay, now I believe
Well,
that I'm
so
trans. So did you have like those
I did,
points or
well,
those incremental points?
I had some progressions, right? So with my sexuality, I realized maybe around 30 that I was actually very attracted to men. Um, but I was also very, at the same time, very critical and very hard on men because I was projecting, right?
Gotcha.
I didn't like the man that I was seeing in the mirror, and I was putting that on everyone. Um, but I knew I was still very attracted to them, right? I just didn't feel comfortable with them. But you know, I knew I knew I didn't like how I looked. And so what I was doing was trying to like how I looked within the framework that I did understand. And so I thought, well, maybe if I just had bigger biceps or better abs or, just one of those things, if I looked more how they say a man should look, maybe I'll like it. And as I got stronger and more ripped, and I was pretty jacked, um, I hated it more and more. And then just, it was a weird feedback loop. But for whatever reason, I had just, when I was alone, I would think, you know what? I think I would like to wear my wife's robe. And it felt good. And I was like, maybe, maybe some underwear. And I would do that. And it just, it just started to creep in from the back of my mind to come to the surface. And uh, finally there it was.
Wow. So you just mentioned that maybe you would wear your wife's clothes. So you're married.
I'm married. Yes, I am married. I've been, and that's why, my sexual orientation never really came up because I've been married since I was 22. This is our 20th anniversary. In fact, we're just getting ready to go out of town. Um, and we'd been together since we were 17. So, um, I had to deal with that. Now, when I came out to myself and realized what was going on, my wife and my children, I have 3 children, were all out of town
Okay.
for the week. And, my first thought, of course, was, oh my God, I'm just going to hide this and no one's ever going to know. And after about 2 minutes, I was like, well, that's ridiculous. You're not going to do that. And people need to know. I said, well, I'm going to have to tell my wife.
Hmm.
And then I thought, well, I don't want to ruin her trip. She just got there. It was a long drive. She's going to have fun with her family. And so we were talking that night, and I wasn't going to say anything, but after about 10 minutes of talking, I couldn't not. Um, and I just had to say, I said, baby, I've got something to tell you. And she says, what? And I was like, um, today I put on a lot of your clothes. And she was like, okay. And I was like, I really liked it. And I
Now, had
just
you put on her clothes before?
not that much, not a
Gotcha.
full
Yeah.
thing. I
It's
said
a,
I
it was
liked
it
it.
was a different put on.
It was a different put on. I said I liked it. I've been doing it all day, and I'm going to do it every day from now on. Um, and then, of course, she burst into tears, and we started working through it from there. Um, and it's not an easy road. It's not easy because it is the only thing. It's the only thing in our life together that we come at from different sides. For
Mm.
me, for me, coming out and realizing that I was trans was overwhelmingly joyful. It was. You hear that term, that gender euphoria. It was hard to deal with how happy I was.
Hmm.
So I had that. On her side, she's shocked and confused and worried and scared. And so I'm super stoked. She's super bummed. And it took a lot of work for
Yeah.
us to get back on the same path. Anything else, we were on the same team, right? Oh, if a kid gets sick, we both feel the same way. Money problems, we both feel the same way. This is different.
Yeah, I would imagine, that kind of news and that kind of discovery and announcement, it would change everything.
And she didn't know because I'm you maybe wouldn't know, but I'm a very private person and I'm very shy. And I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her I was wearing her robe. I didn't tell her that I was thinking about buying women's clothes. I didn't tell her anything um, until I knew. Because if it wasn't real, then I would worry her for no reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you
and
have any? Did you have any? I remember when you were saying that when you realized you had to call her, but you didn't want to ruin her trip. Did you have any apprehensions that if I tell her this, this could mean the end of our relationship?
you know, um, that was a real possibility, and it never it never occurred to me that this could end our relationship. I knew that it would change it. I knew that it would change our relationship, and I didn't know what would change it into. But I wasn't afraid of that. You know, we've been together for so long and been through so much together. I knew, you know, at the end of the day, we would be together. That's us.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how. Now, what I was worried about was everyone else, right? Work, friends, family, and each little coming out is its own minor panic-inducing event.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was different. I was afraid of that. Um,
How was when you just said that you were afraid of all the other comings out? So you have 3 kids.
I do.
How was
I do.
Okay, 3. So how was, I guess, the announcement or the information received by them?
Well, my wife and I we were pretty worried. I was very worried because I felt one, it's you know, you just worry that these people loved this other person that you'd created, and maybe they're not going to love the real you. And I also felt very guilty because I felt like I was stealing their father. It's the little Darth Vader syndrome, right? Like killing their father. So
Yeah.
I was worried. And so my wife ordered some books, and we just kind of put them out, and we read them at bedtime for maybe a week. And then I kind of gathered them up, and I said, "Kids, I've got to tell you something." I said, "You know how we've been reading about transgender people?" And they're like, "Yes." I said, "Well, I'm trans. I was like, I'm a trans woman, and I'm going to start making some changes." He's like, "I'm going to dress different. I'm going to sound different. I'm going to look different."
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Okay." And I expected a lot more. And I said, "So do you have any questions? Or are you worried or mad or anything?" And they're like, "No." And then they were like, "Can we play Xbox?" And
Kids.
I was kind of like, sure. I was almost disappointed that there wasn't more. I was like, okay, I thought it was a big deal, but yeah, go ahead and play. And
Yeah.
and they did, and they've never they've they've never they've never been embarrassed by me. They've they've accepted me from that day. I said, I want to be called Iden now. And he said, fine. And I said, and use she when you tell me, okay, fine. And it's been 100% all the time. It's just, they make it look so easy. Kids make it
Wow.
look so easy, and it should be. It should be that easy. But you pick up so much baggage and nonsense as an adult that they don't have to deal with, I guess.
Yeah. If we could just be like kids.
Oh my gosh.
With the abrupt transition for everybody else but you.
Right.
You've been with yourself for
Right.
for your entire life. So to you,
Right.
it's been very gradual, but to everybody else, it's just kind of like, what? So
Right.
how is this transition when it comes to your relationship with your friends? Or is it awkward? Is there much to explain? Are they all supportive?
It depends. It
Okay.
depends on a lot. It depends on how good of friends we were.
Mm.
And it depends on what you mean by supportive.
Mm.
I haven't had anybody approach me hostilely or negatively. So in that way, yes, everyone's been supportive. Um, but there's definitely um, different tiers to being supportive, you
Mm.
know. And I had a lot of people, especially when you get into the work friend realm and things like that, where it was okay. Yes, we've got your back. We've got your back, but we're also going to talk about you behind your back,
Mm.
and to maybe not stop it when we hear other people talk about you because and you know I get it. It's new. It's different. It's interesting, and um, so there was that. But my friends, my real friends that I've been friends with for ages, um, I told them each individually. And you know, the hardest part for me was just convincing them that I wasn't screwing with them. I was genuine. I was serious. And once they realized I wasn't joking, um, they were like, okay, okay, and they would ask me questions. We'd talk about it, um, and they've been there for me. They will go out with me. They'll go to dinner with me. They'll go shopping with me, and they're not embarrassed. Or if they are, they suck it up. And right, and it's so that has been uh, a wonderful and a stabilizing force for me because it is very lonely when you put yourself out there like that. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God, right? Like you're just it's like it's the ultimate trust fall, you know?
Yeah.
You're leaving your old space behind and you don't have a new one yet. And
Mm.
hoping that you land in something where that you can then grow into.
Wow. Now, before you started to transition versus now, how do you feel about, I don't want to use the word happy, but how do you feel? I know you talked about depression and feeling very awkward.
I tell
Fast
you,
forward to now.
I I realized the first day I I presented female and I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was, you know, I was thinking, I was like, gosh, what? I feel weird. What am I feeling? And then I realized I was like, Iden, you're happy.
Mm.
And then I started crying again because I realized I'd never been happy. I'd
Mm.
been excited. I'd had fun. I'd had a lot of positives, but I'd never been happy. And and it's it's amazing. It really is. I'm not saying that this is just a giant, you know, explosion of rainbows and stardust and you know you come out and then your life is easy and great. But I was never happy. Never once. Genuinely happy. So now every day, at least some part of every day, I am just very truly happy. And
Mm.
it's worth it. It's worth everything. It's worth all the risk.
Wow. So what is one thing that you've learned um, I don't want to say to expect what's one thing that you weren't, let me say this, what's one thing that you were not expecting to have to deal with or have to be challenged by now?
I tell you, I was I was not ready for men. And what I mean by that was yeah, obviously I've been around men and interacted with men a lot. And I've seen how they can be disrespectful to women but I didn't know, right? You just don't know until it happens to you.
Mm.
Until a guy tries to pick you up in the parking lot or at the post office or these things and you're blown away by just the forwardness and the rudeness and the entitlement that men will approach a woman with. Um, and at the same time, um, the kind of condescension. And
Mm.
I don't believe that most times it's intentional or that it's malicious, but I've had men explain to me very simple things like how to use a broom. And, and I'm like, you know, I just can't imagine you telling my old self that.
Mm,
Um, so that has been new
yeah.
for me. Um, and you start to change how you think. But I was not used to um, having to look out for myself in that way. Right?
Mm. How do you find the confidence with everything that's going on around you, in this, I guess, new journey? How do you find the confidence to kind of see the challenges but keep moving forward?
It it is not easy.
Mm.
It is not easy. I was kind of low key complaining about this the other night with my wife, and that I was just telling her how sick of being brave I am.
Mm.
I used to go to the grocery and it was no big deal. Now it takes courage to go
Mm.
to the grocery and present as myself because I don't always present super feminine and I'm not very passable. I look trans. I like being trans. Um, but it comes with a lot of stares and a lot of kind of stopped conversations. And
Mm.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot to just walk past with your head up and be proud. Um, and I don't always know where that comes from, but I
Mm.
know I know that I was so sad and bad off before that I know I don't have a choice, right? And I'm proud of having survived my life in that space
Mm.
because that wasn't always guaranteed.
Right.
And I'm very proud of myself. And so um, you just try to gather that around you and you try to remember the people that have been supportive of you and are also proud of you. And then you just go get your groceries.
So even though, having courage can be exhausting and you don't always feel like being the superhero today,
Right.
but the courage is worth it.
Oh, well, the happiness is worth it.
Mm.
The it's just the relief, the release from that pain and anxiety that came with feeling that you were wrong,
Mm.
feeling that there was something fundamentally wrong with you, and when you didn't realize that it was just this sort of mismatch between your perception and what you were seeing, your lived experience versus your perceived experience. Without that knowledge, I felt like what was wrong was me, right?
Mm.
Like I was bad, and
Mm.
um, that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
And to be released from that, if the cost of that, if the currency I have to exchange to be free from that is to have to invest a little bit more time in my makeup and to hold my head up and turn the other way when people are rude, it's worth it. It's so worth it because the other way is absolutely terrible.
Wow. Looking back to your past, for somebody who, may be on the same journey as you or may have some of the same questions that you had then, what would be one piece of advice that you would have loved to have heard then that you would tell somebody now?
Well, um, this is the advice that I would give a young person, any young person, not just a questioning, possibly trans person or LGBTQ plus, just any person.
Hmm.
I would say, since it's Pride Month, let's look at that and think about that progression, that riot, protest, celebration progression, and how you can live that. How everyone is afraid. Everyone is afraid of being made fun of. Everyone's afraid to talk about maybe an embarrassing hobby or interest or whatever it is. But when you choose to go out and be yourself, be radically yourself, proclaim it, right? Live the riot every day.
Mm.
Then your very existence, your day-to-day existence, then becomes a protest against this culture of fear that is holding everyone back.
Wow.
And once you do that, then every day can also be a celebration for you. Right? So you can live that riot and that protest and that celebration every day by just being yourself.
Wow, that's powerful. Just be yourself. Wow. Well, Iden, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Such a transparent story with a lot of hope and excitement and encouragement and inspiration. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it was an absolute pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you. Well, that was Iden, and the message of this whole story is, just be yourself, be you. Whenever you find that courage to step out and do that, much like Iden was saying, the happy is worth it. So just remember, from me to you, you are the best you in the world. Stay positive and continue to inspire others. We will see you next time on The PHILLIP Show.
Don't